Good evening and welcome to our show. We're near Muncie, where it's springtime here in Indiana. I grew up only a few miles up the road. Now I have only about a 100-yard commute from my house to my studio. Come on inside and I'll show you where I work. Cartoonists all approach their art in a different manner. When I do the Garfield comic strip, I sit down somewhere very quiet, and I try to visualize Garfield in my head as if watching a television set. And when I see him in a funny situation, I follow it along until it ends in something funny, and then I back up 3 frames and cut it off. And while that sounds very simple, it works best for me. When I hear a gag, I see it at the same time. So rather than just writing the words out, I do a pencil rough, designing the strip and writing the words in at the same time. I work up about twice size from the size you see in the newspaper. From there, it goes to my assistant, Gary Barker, who does a finished pencil blue line of the strip. We like to work in blue pencil because it doesn't photograph in the newspaper and we don't have to erase over the ink. That way the ink doesn't smear. After that, it goes to my assistant, Valette Hildebrand, who does the lettering and the inking on this strip. And then it comes back to me to check the spelling, add my name and the date, and then the strip is sent to New York.
Okay, Garfield. In 10 seconds, the timer will go off. Capturing for posterity a portrait of a sophisticated young man and his faithful companion.
The greatest enjoyment I get from doing the strip is making people laugh, or at the very least, making people smile. The nicest letters I get are from people who say that Garfield in some way has brightened their day, and they look forward to seeing him all the time. Because Garfield is an entertainment figure. And if nothing else, I hope he tells people that life isn't so bad and that we should all learn to laugh at ourselves.
Let's draw some Garfield expressions. You know, expressions really are one of the most fun parts of the cartooning. Again, I work in a mirror, and I'm going to draw Garfield happy here, okay? When he's happy, look at this. The mouth comes all the way up around the eyes. See that? And let's see, he's excited here too. And that is simply happy. He looks happy all over. All right? Now, let's do the opposite of this one, and let's do sad. Sometimes I draw the outline of the face, and then I draw the eyes. Now, sad takes this kind of an expression, okay? Look at that. Aww. And his mouth droops down like that. And everything kind of droops, even the ears. Look at this. The ears droop down. And then everything sags. Everything's sad from that point. So always remember this. This is a very important thing. All right? Now, let's draw him angry, and we're going to go the opposite direction with those eyes. When it's angry, they come down very sharply and up. Look in the mirror sometime. Your eyes will do this too. And then the mouth really curls down. All right? Look at that. That's angry. And on a cat, watch a cat who's getting ready to have a fight. The ears turn back. In fact, let's go ahead and take this another step and do them even angrier yet. Look at this. We can do sharp teeth. Look at that. Now, he's really upset and he's getting ready to fight. So let's do a variation off the happy. Let's say he got caught in the act of eating a piece of pie that he wasn't supposed to have, and John catches him, all right? This is sort of sheepish here. Now, he shows big teeth right there. He's trying to look innocent, but he really is guilty. That's one of my favorite expressions. Garfield gets caught in the act a lot. That's what that looks like. All right. Now, let's do scared. When he's scared, again, the eyes are open, but look what happens to the pupils of the eyes. They get real small. They float right in the middle of the eyes, and the mouth gets real small, too. So he just saw a ghost, or he just saw a very big dog. Not happy about that. Now let's do the classic Garfield expression. Here's one where he's always thinking something naughty. He's got that real attitude in his expression. He'd like to be pushing Odie off the table or something. This is his wise guy expression. This is the one you've seen most often. Classic Garfield.
It was very different when I first started doing him back in 1978. There's been almost this Darwinian evolution of the character in that he had expressive parts that were actually very small to begin with. He had these little tiny beady eyes, and then he had these big rabbit ears. And you notice he didn't smile very much back then. He had these great big fat cheeks. And he looked like, for me, he looked like a sort of a big giant lump of clay. Still had those stripes right here. But he sat on this big base. He didn't move very much. Little tiny tail, little tiny toes.
Tus trailers. Visita
Like
mi
this.
canal.
He was just pretty much of a couch potato. Sat around, took pot shots at life. And actually I had a call from a Swedish editor, Olli Petrini. He had been translating Peanuts since 1953, and he had a great touch with the comics, and he said, I think you have a very fine cartoon here, and I think it's going to do well someday, but he says, Garfield doesn't smile very much. He's, so sour all the time. He said, if you let him smile, then that's good contrast with the rest of his personality. So I gave him a teddy bear, had him smile a little more, and the rest is history.
Hey guys, welcome to my world. I'm Jim Davis. I draw the comic strip Garfield. So for the next few minutes I'm going to show you what I do, show you around the studio, and talk a little bit about our holiday specials. This is my desk here, all my computers and everything. This used to be a drawing board, now it holds my laptop computer. And I actually draw the comic strip digitally these days. It's a Cintiq, and I can draw big Garfields and color them in if I want. And this is it's great fun to play with, and a great toy. Of course, nothing replaces being able to draw naturally really well. So let me show you something. So I still have lots of books around here. That's one of the things, if you want to be a cartoonist, I think as important as being able to draw well, you should read. Read everything. The more you read, the more material you have to work with your comic strip. So pick up a book and start working on your material today. Speaking of working, here's some artwork from my grandchildren. Every Friday they get off the school bus and we spend an hour or so drawing together, painting, coloring, and talking about art and cartooning and things like that, and we have a great time. And for me, I guess it sounds a little strange, but I don't believe in something called art talent. I believe in experience, that the more you draw, the better you get. If you have thousands of drawings behind you, every drawing from then on is going to be really good. So let me show you how I draw Garfield. I always start with the eyeballs, and then I always hope he ends up on the page from here. He has these big expressive eyes and these little ears. Over time, his mouth's getting bigger and bigger. That's because he loves to eat, and it makes him a lot more expressive too. He has big full cheeks, like me. And I always worked in a mirror for several years, copying my expressions for Garfield and for Jon. So as a result, we gradually started to look a lot alike. And of course, he's got this big tummy. I didn't really copy real cats when I designed Garfield. I thought what I thought would be a funny cartoon cat would be truer to the character Garfield than if I tried to draw a real one. Garfield, by the way, is named after my grandfather. His name was James A. Garfield Davis. He was named after the president, and he was a big stubborn man and reminded me in many ways of Garfield, so I thought that would be a good name for him. Put some stripes on the back. Have him wave to you here. There we go. He's happy to see you. Put some ground indications in here. There we go. And the most important part, my signature. Here we go. And that's Garfield. We're here on about 30 acres of woods and meadows and ponds. It's very nice. It makes it very relaxing to work. So when things get really crazy, we just go take a walk in the woods, go scream at the squirrels. You can see out here, Indiana cornfields right across the street. This makes a very peaceful place to work. And the only thing really where you could tell that this is Garfield's studio that's out front, we don't have any signs or anything, but we do have this big paw print. So aside from the fact this is a rather large building to be sitting in the middle of the country, this is the only thing that says it's really Garfield's home. So we have a lot of fun here.
But to read the strip that Jim Davis still writes every day, or to visit the Paws Incorporated compound on the outskirts of Muncie, Indiana, you'd be hard-pressed to tell whether it's 2018 or, let's say, 1989.
We moved in 1989, I think it was. This is the art department back here. We took the comic strip digital about 8 years ago.
Do you happen to know how many papers it's syndicated in right now?
A little over 2,100 papers now.
Jeez.
We're in 111 countries, about 28 languages. All the mail comes in the big door over there, and it all gets sorted out. We take a look at the products that come in and approve them or not approve them. And
How often do you have to reject something?
every day we reject something. This is how we draw Garfield. Garfield actually is in 3 equal parts. If you draw 3 circles, just like this, you got all the Garfield parts, the head, the belly, and the feet. Now from here, I start with the eyeballs. The eyeballs are like the windows to the soul, and they're the most important part because they're the expression. And you can see I start with 2 circles and work them like this. We're working at like a 3/4 angle, and then on top of that I put his ears. Everything that's expressive on Garfield is large. You notice he has the big eyes and then this big mouth. And that way when he smiles very big. And this is very important in getting the humor and to helping the character act as well. Now we round out this top circle with the jaws and his big cheeks. And give him little cat whiskers up here. You notice how they're kind of fall down with the weight of gravity there. And also, Garfield isn't perfect circles. Notice this. Look how there's this natural weight. He looks like a water balloon. And that just makes him look like he's actually grounded somewhere. And underneath this, then we do the same thing with the belly. Notice how it's flat and then rounds a little more here. Here's his back shoulder and his bottom. And then the arms hang not straight down, but they have a little bit of bend to them. Everything's a little bit angular, you'll notice. And this keeps everything soft and flowing and animated. And this is his hand, he's waving, so we use these little motion lines like this to indicate movement up and down. So do some more stripes here. I just do little squiggles for the stripes. I'm doing a drawing like this. Now here, we do his feet. Now he doesn't have little tiny cat feet. He has big feet to give him some natural weight. That's so he doesn't fall over. Finish this out, give him another foot back there. Again, everything's real rounded and very flowing. And this, I think this is funnier. It's just funnier to have lines like this. If the lines are real straight, then they're real stiff, and there's not much humor. You know, everything like that, they look like they're very uncomfortable when they move around. So let's see. And don't forget, when you're done here, put some little shadows under the character so it looks like they're standing on the ground. And the most important part, of course, is signing your work. So put your signature underneath, like this. There you have it. That's how we draw Garfield. This is how we draw Odie. The interesting thing about Odie is that I place the eyes at this spot on the page, hoping that he's going to fit on the page when I get done. Well, the trick to that is that you have to visualize the character in your head. You have to visualize anything in your head before you can put it down on the paper, because your hands don't know where to go. So I visualize him right here on the page, and then we start drawing him from here out. The fun thing about Odie is that he's all happiness and he's all rubber, especially like with these ears. You can see, I always think of big rubbery, like rabbit ears when I draw him. He's got this little head, because he has a little brain, and then this great big happy smile. In fact, the bigger I make the tongue, the funnier he is. Again, there aren't any straight lines here on the character anywhere. And that just keeps him real loose. He has this little tiny body. And look at this little tail. I put little action lines here on the tail. His tail's always wagging because he's always happy. And then he has these big puppy feet. And then he's got these great big feet like this. And a little tummy. There we go. And a little spot right there. Now the fun thing about Odie, he's so enthusiastic. He loves life so much. He's always slobbering. In fact, most dogs do it, but he's the poster child for it. The more slobber I give him, the funnier he is. In fact, we'll give him a great big old pool of slobber right here. There we go. And don't forget to put your signature on the drawing. There it is. And that's Odie. A few years later, I would say about 1980, 85, you'll notice those things on Garfield that were expressive got larger. The eyes got larger. And the ears got smaller because they weren't as expressive. And bear in mind, by this time, newsprint was very expensive. Newspaper comics were shrinking in a lot of papers. So the editors were making the strips smaller, and I had to make all the features larger. So Garfield had this real round face and these real round eyes. And his body got a little bit smaller here. The limbs got a little bit longer, so he got a little more animated right here. And so he was becoming, I think, aesthetically pleasing, a little nicer looking cat. I remember back when I got started with this, when I first sent the submission into the syndicate, I'd been trying for years and years, and the president of the syndicate called and he said, I think we'll syndicate Garfield. He said, but at that time I didn't have any stripes on the cat at all. He said, I'll syndicate him if you give the cat stripes. And I thought, stripes! Brilliant! Why didn't I think of that before? Of course, then I put stripes on Garfield and we got syndicated. And so to this day, I've had to draw about 8 million stripes on Garfield. But it gives him personality.
Let's draw Garfield in motion. The important thing to remember with motion is to get everything moving in the same direction. As long as you think action and direction, you're going to be just fine, okay? Here's Garfield walking. So we get everything moving forward. He's looking forward. He's leaning forward. And everything's moving in the same direction. Look at this. We're going to take the body and move it out behind here. See, now like here is the center line of gravity, but everything's behind him and he's moving this way. So here he is with the arms swinging. It never hurts to go ahead and stand up and walk yourself and try to capture this kind of emotion. Okay, here he is, walking forward. Now, a couple of cartoon indications, okay? Here, we throw in some action lines, and that shows that he's moving forward. And also, that we do this shading underneath to show what area is right directly under his body. So this is Garfield walking. Another important concept to understand is also what we call squash and stretch. Now this is where you actually take the character out of proportion, but for some reason in cartooning it looks just fine. What we're going to do here is draw Garfield reaching for a piece of pie. Now, you know his arms are basically this length right here. Okay? Now on a squash and stretch, we'll take this far arm and we draw it real long because he's reaching for this piece of pie. There he goes. Now even though that arm is much longer than it should be, it looks okay in cartooning because he's reaching. In fact, let's do this. Let's go ahead and put him up on his toes. All right? That makes him even longer when he's reaching for that piece of pie. And again, we do the tail out here. So, and the shading underneath. There he is reaching for a piece of pie. Now, a real big piece of action. This is Garfield running. Now, you know Garfield's got to be excited, so we're going to make him with open eyes when he's running. In fact, we'll even do his mouth open here. Sometimes I work in a mirror when I'm working on some of these just to see what he's going to look like when he's running. Again, with all the motion, look how his ears go back in the wind. And again, you have to think about every piece of action. His fists are clenched, and his body goes way back like this. And his arm goes out in front, like that. And we get his legs up real high. Now, we're really exaggerating this running motion. But it's going to look very natural when it's in cartooning. Now, when a character is running, they're usually off the ground. So we're going to put the shading all the way underneath. Now, to give even a bigger feeling of motion here, we're going to give them action lines and maybe even one of these dust clouds on the back. And we could even do a dust cloud underneath when he stirs up dust when he's running. And another thing I like to do with Garfield, look at this, we'll bend the whiskers to get the action. And when a cat runs or a dog runs, little hairs come off the back. They're always shedding. And that gives even a bigger feeling of action. So he's really moving forward. He's really excited. There's a lot of energy in a drawing like this. Now let's go exactly the opposite direction. We're going to do Garfield totally without motion. But again, to me, this is a motion drawing. This is one of my favorites. This is Garfield sound asleep or totally bored. We're going to employ a little trick here called foreshortening. This is turning the head up so far that you don't even see the eyes. Got a big tummy here. Everything's laying flat, by the way, on this line right down here. So his arms are resting right beside him, and you've got the legs resting on the ground, big toes, like this. And this is Garfield resting. Now we get everything going along the floor line here, even the tail. And here we'll move the whiskers up here. Totally bored, really rested. And sometimes here, for an effect, we'll go ahead and do this little sound effect. Garfield, sound asleep. That's always fun. He's very funny in this position. Okay, you've seen Garfield in motion. Give it a try yourself. Have fun.
Hi, I'm Jim Davis. I'm a cartoonist, and I'm going to draw my cat Garfield right here on my Wacom Cintiq. Okay, work with me, work with me. I always start with the eyeballs. And that way, after a few years, I have learned that the character will not slop off the edge of the page when I get done. And they say the eyes are the mirrors to the soul. So over the years, Garfield's eyes have been getting bigger and bigger. especially as comic strips have been getting smaller on the newspaper page. For years, too, I worked with a mirror to copy my own expressions on Garfield. And that's why he has the puppy cheeks and everything else like I do. These are the cheeks. Garfield is in thirds. His body actually is the same size as his head. There we go. And the shoulders and the back. And then the legs are another third. I purposely did not look at any real cats when I designed Garfield because I felt what I pictured in my mind was probably more like the personality of the character I wanted to draw than trying to copy a real cat. So because essentially Garfield is a human in a cat suit. He has all the human failings, and I think that's why we identify with him so well. And the cool part about it is, you know, he's not perfect, and he knows that, but he's cool with that. So, essentially, I'm holding a mirror to the reader and showing the reader back with all these imperfections, because I think more often than not, when you laugh at Garfield, it's because you're saying, isn't that true? Especially when he says things like, I hate Mondays, or I'd like mornings better if they started later. Things like that. Okay, here's kind of his shape. We're going to throw some color in here. Let's do that Garfield orange. Believe it or not, this is Federal Yellow. It's one of the most visible colors on the road, and that's why I wanted to do a character who really showed up, especially in the Sunday papers. And let's give him a hot pink nose. There we go. Now I'll go back in and finish those stripes off. They're the curb feelers. I had initially designed Garfield with no stripes, and after 9 years of trying to get syndicated with the newspaper syndicate, an editor said, I think I'll take your strip for syndication, but what about putting stripes on your cat? And I thought, stripes! It never occurred to me. Brilliant! And so, as a result, for 36 years now, I've probably done 10 million stripes as a result of that one stupid suggestion. But now it's part of his personality. All right, there we go. Let's do a little bit of shading in here too. A little airbrush action here. Kind of round him out. There we go. Yeah. This is fun with the new art programs. This would have taken weeks pulling up other tools, mixing other inks and things like that. So now we have all the tools right here on our screen. It makes it a lot more fun. Here we go. We'll do a little shading in here on the ground. All right. And I know, Garfield cannot just stand there. He's got to say something. Oh yeah, let's do this. And one more little touch. Here we go. And let's make this official. And there you have it, my cat Garfield.
And now here in Hollywood is the director of animation, Phil Roman.
Hi, Jim. I just thought the viewers would be interested in seeing how we put together an animated Garfield TV special. What we've chosen to show you today is a section of Jon, Garfield, and Odie going to their local TV station for a talent audition. We take the script as written by Jim Davis, and we develop what we call a storyboard. There are 6 drawings per page and about 70 pages per script, so we have about 420 drawings per show. We plot out the action and establish the various settings in which the characters will move. These are model sheets. We try to develop each character in every possible situation, happy, angry, sad, and so forth. Then the animators will refer to these model sheets as they create the action. There are very specific directions for the drawing of each character. You can see here how just one pose calls for all sorts of detail. I usually time out a picture on what we call bar sheets. This is where I establish the pacing and continuity of the show. I determine the length of a scene, or close-ups or long shots, and how the dialogue and action fit in. Once the animator puts enough of these drawings together, then you start to see action like this. About 12 of these drawings will be photographed in 1 second. Our production chief, Ted B. Miller, is checking out our dailies on an editing machine called a Moviola. We do the various actions in what we call pencil test animation. This way we can check the animation in pencil before we go to the expensive color painting. The next step in the animation process is to get the animator's original drawings and transfer them onto celluloids. We call them cells. Now there are approximately 30,000 of these cells that have to be hand painted. And they're painted by folks like Shannon Meyer here, who's working on one of the cells right now. Shannon, what do you find that's the most difficult when you're painting?
Aside from staying within the line, which we all have experience with from our childhood, I would say it's getting the correct mix of water in the paint so the paint is smooth enough and thin enough to flow on evenly, and yet it's still opaque.
We have already established the basic settings on our storyboard, and now they are enlarged on the layouts across which the various characters will move. Then, while the animation is being done, our sets are being painted as well by the background artist who add the color and mood to each scene. The cameraman then photographs the completed scene. He combines the animation and the backgrounds and then shoots each individual drawing 1 frame at a time. Later, when the film is projected at the normal speed of 24 frames per second, the characters will appear to come to life.
I'm an eyeball man. I always start drawing the eyeballs first, and then I hope the rest of the character fits on the page. Garfield's appeal partly lies in the fact that he is selfish and lazy. We live in a time where we're made to feel guilty about overeating and oversleeping and not exercising. Garfield defends his right to do all of that. I think he takes away some of our guilt when he does it on the comics page every day. Garfield's ears got smaller as the years wore on because they didn't have anything to do with expression. I can't remember not wanting to be a cartoonist. I grew up on a farm near Fairmount, Indiana, and as a child I was asthmatic and I was forced to spend a lot of time inside. So to entertain myself, I drew pictures. And my pictures were so bad, I used to have to label them. I would draw a cow, write cow, draw an arrow down to the cow, so people would know what it was. After a while, it became very comfortable for me to put words with pictures. I couldn't communicate totally with just pictures or with just words. For me, cartooning was a very natural thing. I'm not quite sure what kind of discipline it takes to become a successful cartoonist. Once Al Cap told me it takes 2 things to become a cartoonist. It helps to have been dropped on your head as a small child, and secondly, you must have no desire, talent, or ability to do anything useful in life. The one thing that's never changed about Garfield is that he has this big, portly figure, or as Garfield describes it, he's queen-sized, big-boned, but he's small for a tanker. He has this bottomless stomach, this limitless appetite that we all wish we had. In fact, his appetites are very human. Garfield is basically a human in a cat suit. A lot of his tastes are so human, in fact, he doesn't care to eat mice. The thought of putting a live rodent in his mouth disgusts him. Garfield's big appetite isn't confined to the usual 3 meals in the day. There's the mid-morning snack, the late morning snack, the early, the late, afternoon snacks, the early and late evening snack.
When I started at Ball State Teachers College in 1963, the only thing that they offered in art was art education. So for 3 years, I studied in the art department toward being a teacher, when actually I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to do something with the craft. In the back of my mind, I'd love to be a cartoonist, but that just seemed, so far out there. When I finally got it to the part where I actually had to do the student teaching, where the rubber hit the road, I thought, maybe if I go over to business, maybe I can get into advertising or art studio or something like that. While that wasn't really what motivated me, it nevertheless gave me some great background for eventually doing what I'm doing, with this business. Unknowingly, I thought I was going to be working just in art, but as it turns out, with licensing and those kind of opportunities that were afforded, the comic strip, why I'm glad I got that experience as well. This is where all the fun pictures and all the art's done. You can see these are some designs we're doing for some Garfield art down the road. One of our designers, Jeff Wesley, he actually heard me even with his earbuds in. You can see he's a big collector too. You see the theme around here? Lots of toys and funny stuff. So it helps to be a cartoon fan in this line of work. All kinds of products from the international market. Ideas. Oh, and cartoonists too. You're gonna be famous. This is Lori Barker. She's been working on Garfield forever. Look at this. Look how big she works on the Cintiq here, inking the Garfield strip. It makes it easier. We all learned with brush and ink, and it took some time to learn how to work with a stylus. We used to use all these drawing boards. Now you can see that they're all computers over here. It's Lars, works with coloring, you can see he loves to do watercolor as well. And what are you working on, Lars?
I've got some files here strips that I'm preparing to be colored.
All right.
So they were Illustrator. They're going into Photoshop, making black and white TIFF file. And here's one that's getting there. And then I will make a color TIFF file. And then proceed to color. All of
the comic strips go into color electronically as well.
Here's one of Garfield's favorite places to be. He's in his bed. This is why he's smiling. He makes no apologies for being lazy. There we go.
You were saying that, we were talking about the success you had with this venture. Was there any negative effects of becoming so successful?
I can't honestly think of a downside to all the stuff we've been doing, because for every, for all the hard work, all the extra time that it costs, it still provided us with so much rich experience, and gave us so much background on everything we do. Just, I guess, natural depth to the kind of material, we work with. That it's all been worth it. It's been hard work, been a few tears, but an awful lot of laughter with all of this, and so that makes it worth the extra effort. In the years before Garfield, when I was playing around with a lot of cartoon ideas, I did this one character I called Gnorm Gnat, and I thought bugs were funny. Gnorm was, he's a kind of a Garfield kind of character, and but he was stood out. It was hard to tell exactly what gnats look like. They're so tiny. So I guess anything I made up
was going to work just fine. Of course, gnats have little antennae like this, and he had a little body with a, here we go. And we were kind of looking at life through a gnat's eyes here. He really was very funny. He was more or less the observer. Had these kind of funny, skinny legs. I don't know how many legs a gnat really has, but again, it's a comic strip, so it doesn't really matter much. There
Y
you go.
tus trailers. Visita mi canal.
He had friends like Freddie the fruit fly, and fruit flies only live about 2 weeks, so Freddie was always understandably depressed all the time. But there's Gnorm Gnat. You know, the strip wasn't that popular. I ran it in a little local paper, and when I decided to do Garfield, I liked it so well, I decided to get rid of the gnat strip. So in the last strip I ran in the paper, I had this great big foot come out of the sky and squash Gnorm flat. And I guess as a testament to how unpopular the strip was, I think there was only one letter to the editor protesting it. That was after 5 years. So it's best I'm not working for a gnat today. I paid a visit to Tom Ryan, who did the Tumbleweeds comic strip. And he was only a few blocks from the university and from where I worked at the Commercial Arts Studio. And I showed him my art. And he asked me to become his assistant. And I said, well, I have to think about it for sure. And so in 1969, I started working for Tom, TK Ryan, as he signed his strips. And I worked for Tom for 9 years, doing the backgrounds, borders, balloons for Tom, and doing the inking and stuff like that, and answering his fan mail. So I got sort of a feeling of what it was like to maintain a syndicated comic strip. During the course of that 9 years, I tried to come up with some ideas to syndicate a strip myself. That was always, that gave me the confidence working for Tom to try to go after a strip. Tom had said that one syndicate executive said, you know, it'd be great to have maybe a comic strip about bugs. I go, bugs? I can do bugs. So I created a strip called Gnorm Gnat, Gnorm Gnat.
Like so many cartoonists that are trying to find something that's going to stick. You know, you throw a lot of spaghetti against the wall, you know, to find out what stuff's going to stick. So he did, you know, Gnorm Gnat, right? And he was working on the Tumbleweeds for a little while, honing his skills for another master of the craft. And I think at one point, you know, Gnorm Gnat got rejected, and they just like, yeah, bugs aren't funny.
Bugs? Nobody can relate to bugs. And so I just had this Norm walking down the street. He's just in a great mood, and I had this big shoe come out of the sky and squash him flat.
Jim, thank you for being here tonight and inviting all of us to be here with you tonight. We really appreciate it. I was going to ask you something conventional, like, are you still writing the daily strip? But I figure somebody else is going to cover that. I want to know, what would Gnorm Gnat think of Garfield's success?
What was the
What would Gnorm Gnat think of Garfield's success?
There was this character, I don't really talk about anymore, but before I did Garfield in a local paper, Pendleton, a weekly paper. I created a character called Gnorm Gnat, and that was after reading a book about bugs and stories. Tom Ryan encouraged me to do a bug strip. I thought bugs were funny. Nobody else did. I worked on it for years and years, and ran Norm Weekly in the Pendleton Times. And finally, I'd submitted it to a lot of syndicates. The syndicates take your comic strip and they sell it to the papers. And I got a letter from one editor saying, you know, your art's great, your humor's good, but bugs, nobody could relate to bugs. And he was absolutely right. That's when I started looking for something people could relate to. And that's where I went to, thought about animals, pets, something somebody can relate to. Because I think the secret to Garfield's path to success was being able to hold a mirror to the reader, but showing it back with a humorous twist. He has all the human failings, but he's okay with that. He helps us feel a little bit better about ourselves by relieving our guilt. So that day in and day out kind of reinforces, the fact we are human and we need to lighten up, and enjoy, those things that we enjoy.
I'm Jim Davis, and this is Paws Incorporated, where the Garfield comic strip is drawn every day. And we're going to show you how it's drawn. I write the comic strip 1 week out of the month. And what I've learned is that if I can really focus a week on just the writing of the strip, I can create a month's worth of gags. Garfield writes his own material. I simply edit. It's really getting into this almost meditative state. He has to make me laugh first before I write anything else down. Sometimes the gags don't come as easily as other times, so I do use some tricks to get into a funnier mood. It helps to be rested, by the way. I drink coffee to get the heart pounding. Also, I like to read comic books. When it's all complete in my head, then I start the rough drawing. I hear the voice, I see the characters, and I very quickly try to sketch it out before the image goes away. The trick is actually freeze-framing Garfield because he's animated in my head, so I have to stop him in just the appropriate position because I only have 3 frames to work within. I set the gag up, I twist it, and then I resolve the situation. When I'm done with the thumbnail sketches, then I take them to Eric for penciling.
Hi, I'm Eric Reeves, and I do the blue line and lettering for the Garfield comic strip. Okay, what I'm doing now is just interpreting Jim's rough sketch and taking it into a more final look. You can draw circles, you can draw Garfield. We use the cotton glove simply to keep our body oils and grease off the surface while we're drawing. When you make a mistake, it's really no big deal. You just get your eraser out and erase. Once the blue line pencils are done, then I put the lettering on. The Garfield strip is a little different in that we do all our lettering by hand. So when I sit down and do the lettering, you have that hand feel that you don't get from a computer. Every E is not exactly the same. It gives it, just a little bit more character to the strip. Once the lettering is done, then my job is over, and I walk it over to Lars, and he starts on the inking.
Hi, my name is Larry Fence. Some people call me Lars, and I ink the Garfield comic strip. And I usually start inking on either the eyes or Garfield's nose, just because it's the center of his face, and the ovals seem to be the most difficult to do, so I get those out of the way right off the bat. The black line just allows you to see the line work more readily. It prints easier. The blue line would actually drop out, so that's basically a map or a guideline to ink by. This headset allows me to magnify the strip so I can see what I'm inking. I have to be able to control the brush precisely, and it's difficult if you can't see the brush. Well, not everybody has to wear these, just the old guys. The ink dries pretty fast, but I have caught myself going faster than the ink dries. And that's it, we're ready for color.
Hi, I'm Tom Howard. I'm the colorist for the Garfield cartoon strip. So I basically have it scanned in the computer, and then it'll become a digital file, and from there it comes into my Photoshop program where I'll start my coloring. The stylus, I can basically get in and color things in a very tight kind of motion. Also, a stylus gives you a little more flexibility for the artist. Rather than using a block of soap or something like that, the stylus gives an artist the same feel as a brush or a pen. We have certain colors that we use for the Garfield characters, the oranges, the browns, the yellows. One Garfield orange. It's a sort of a vibrant orange. It's a 137 is what its number is. There's an open area where the inker hasn't filled in a line or connected a line. The color will come all the way through into the background. So for this particular one, I'm going to kind of fill in a little bit of Garfield here and overlap. And basically, I'll fill in as much as I can here to try to find the open spaces and basically fill in like this. Then I'll go back and use white to clean up the edges. Garfield's lip is a Pantone 100. And basically, I'll go in here and fill in the open areas here with a brush tool. Looks like we're all done now, and this will go off to Jim for his approval. Here you go, Jim.
This is brilliant. Who wrote this?
You did, Mr. Davis.
Oh, of course. And what you've seen up to now is really easy. Now comes the really tough part, and that is sending the comic strips to the newspapers. This is how we do it. This is how we draw Pookie. Pookie's the teddy bear. And you have to think of this character as marshmallows. He's like big lumps of clay, and we put them together with two basic circles, a big head and a big body, and then we attach the feet and the arms and everything like that. So I work from the eyeballs out. He has these little eyeballs here. And then I start constructing everything else. I get this natural weight going. See how we do the circles down here to make him look like he's sort of filled with fluid. And then we fit the ears on here. Now the arms kind of droop and come over him like that. And the feet are real floppy. And they flow in like this. So now with that in mind, then I can start putting the big drawing together. We give him a little bit of hair to make him look kind of natural there. There we go. And you can see when everything overlaps, you kind of have to do construction drawings underneath so that you don't draw one line over another. And this helps fill it in like this. There we go. And notice how everything's kind of floppy, how everything kind of droops on him. And then here he's got this big natural weight at the bottom and little padded feet. He's a brown bear, but he's got these little pink pads. Makes him kind of cute. He's one of Garfield's favorite people. And then we put these little dots on here. See these little dots? These make him look like he's kind of fuzzy. And then the most important part is to give him those shadows again so that he looks like he has this natural weight. And it's just like that. He's very cute. He doesn't talk at all, so it's hard to give him expression. He's one of the tougher characters to work with, but you know he's one of people's favorite characters because he's so sweet. And then you add the perfunctory signature right there. And that's Pookie.
Hi, I'm Taylor Cranville, character designer on the Garfield movie. I have got a real treat for you today. Today I'm going to show you how to design some of our favorite characters from the film. Let me show you how I design Garfield. One of the main things with each of our characters from the film is we wanted to maintain what we would call the melting candle concept. We wanted all of their forms to not feel stiff. We wanted the forms to feel like it had weight to it. It was one of the keys for unlocking how we wanted to maintain all the beautiful parts of Jim Davis's design. His ears, we're gonna make sure they're nice and chunky. One of the coolest things that we were able to kind of run with was making sure we really found that beautiful muzzle shape that Jim Davis so wonderfully came up with. We definitely don't want to forget the beautiful, iconic stripes. And now we'll continue with his body. Make sure we don't forget how much this cat is eating. Put a little bit of weight in those skinny legs. They may not look like they can support that belly. I think with some big feet, I think we'll find some balance of this guy. Don't forget those nice triangle shapes. Jim Davis really laid down the ground rules for us that we could follow. Each part of Garfield, we decided as a team to break up those really nice graphic shapes in threes. So there's 3 triangles inside the ears, 3 whiskers on each side of his head. There's even these 3 really fun small triangles inside of the muzzle shape. And last but not least, let's get that beautiful iconic tail. Voila. And that is our Garfield. And now let me show you how to draw Odie. So we can start off with a light sphere for the head. And what we want to do is we want to start building off of that shape, give him a big, fun muzzle and a really cool nose. Have some fun here with drawing his eyes. You can really push how open that mouth is. One of the great notes that we received from Jim Davis was to make sure that we should see Odie as that lovable dog with his mouth open and his tongue out. His body basically is just one flour sack shape or water balloon. We kind of can mark 2 little points here where the ears can start to come out of his head. We want to make sure that those ears have a nice big bend in them. Maybe there's a few indications up top that his ears are pretty furry. And as we continue to work on this guy, he starts to come together. You know, Odie is known to slobber all over the house, so I think we can have room for a little bit of that. Garfield has 3 whiskers on each side of his head. Odie has 2 that show up behind his head, underneath his ears. And we also want to add his pretty famous black spot. His feet are rather massive. Also, I don't want to forget his wonderful tail. He doesn't necessarily have eyebrows, but he does have a nice kind of skin fold above his eyes that really help for his expressions. Can even come in and tweak the body a little bit. Your attention to detail in the final 10%, I call it, of a design really kind of makes a design stand out. And that, I think, will be a wrap on the lovable and very slobbery Odie. Now let me show you how to draw Jon. Find the center of his head, get the classic Jim Davis expression. As I look at this, perhaps we go for a more wide-eyed look on this one. We may change that later, but for right now, we'll get that classic little button nose. It doesn't show up so much in the comics, but we definitely had to make that adaptation and change for the big screen. I think I kind of want a panicked look on Jon. I feel like Jon probably has dealt with a little bit of ice cream on his head.
Oh, come on!
There's this really cool thing that Jim Davis did, and that is this kind of really fun, tapered sideburns that he does with his characters.
Press 1 if your cat is boring.
Try to imply maybe at least one of those eyebrows up there. Slight bit of color on his cheeks there. Okay, so that's it for the structure of his head. And now we can start to think about the gesture of his body. He might be a little bit more stiff, a little bit more hunched over. Neck might be coming a little bit forward. We can add a few quick buttons down his shirt. Can't forget his pocket here. Even when we look at the fabric folds of a character, you can kind of feel like they were a little bit melted, even on the arm. Jon's got a little belt, stylish watch that he's wearing. With Jim Davis's designs, everything had a particular rhythm to it and life, even something as insignificant as the hands. The feet, they're so chunky and squishy that we want to keep them kind of bubbly. Little cuffs there in the bottom of the pants, just a couple folds, maybe a little bit on the knees. One thing that we wanted to bring over was stripes, and we can put in a few fun details. You can really start to see what we call the line of action, one of the principles in animation. We want that to run through the character. And that is John Arbuckle.
Oh, I really missed you guys, and I gotta say, it's great to be together again, the whole entire family.
We had such a great time designing a lot of these characters. And even though there's a certain cat that hates Mondays, we as a crew ended up loving them.
To the animators who did the film, bravo. I could see the kind of energy and the kind of heart, the kind of thought, the kind of devotion you put into creating those characters. The art direction, everything in the movie is just spectacular.
Sounds are a very important part of cartooning. Let's play with some Garfield sounds. Sound effects are one of the real tricks of the trade. We call it onomatopoeia, and those are words that sound like sounds, and they really do help embellish the cartoon and explain the action. Now, we're going to do some actions, and I'm going to put some words with it here when we get done. One of my favorites is when Garfield gets hit in the face with a pie, okay? Here's the edge of a pie, and when Garfield gets hit, this pie goes like that. It really splatters, all right? Now, Garfield is back here somewhere. You'll have to trust me. Here are fingers. You know, see how his body goes this way? He's really getting hit hard with this pie here. All right. All right. This pie's coming in like this. All right. There's Garfield getting hit with a pie. And the sound effect we use with this one is splut. In fact, I like splut so well. We've even had splut weeks. Every day gets hit with a different kind of a pie. Now let's use a more subtle kind of a sound effect, okay? Here's one Garfield uses a lot too. So this is what he does right after a meal. Puts his hand over his mouth like this. I'm not going to give this one away. Just had a big meal. I have to tell you, Garfield is not very nice in this respect. But he goes, burp. Just like that. How many times does that happen to us? Okay, here's another fun one. This is one of Garfield's favorite things to do. This is not very nice. I get some mail occasionally about this because he's not very nice. He hates spiders. Here he is. His fists are clenched. He's really leaning forward. And he's got a newspaper like this. And a big action line, okay? And this is splat. Poor spider, look at here. Here are little tiny legs coming out there. The spider never fares very well when Garfield's around him with a newspaper. That's an easy sound effect. Okay, we're going to go to a little tougher sound effect now. This is what Garfield does absolutely best. First, we have to draw this great big mouth. Get it open just as much as we can, like this, okay? And then we're going to draw a whole blur of arms, like this, okay? Can you guess what he's doing yet? Watch this. I'm going to make you guess. This is his ears back here. Here is his food bowl. And he is eating. Now here, rather than making a lot of eating sounds, we use a lot of descriptive terms. And this really helps a lot. We use, let's see, gulp, snack. We can pick up burp, gobble, snarf, and anything you can think of that has anything to do with eating. Eat, that's always fun. And so these words are all real funny, but they help to describe this whole action of Garfield eating. So those are sound effects, and that's called onomatopoeia. Make up some of your own words. What would it sound like if you slipped on a banana? Have fun.
This is the front door. This is where all the mail comes in. And all of Garfield's guests. Oh, hey Kim. Hey Frida. Hi Sheila. This is Garfield. And this is the first strip that I ever did. It's 36 years ago. So Garfield, Jon, in case you didn't know it, actually is a cartoonist. I only alluded to this in the first comic strip. He goes, hi there, I'm Jon Arbuckle, I'm a cartoonist, and this is my cat, Garfield. Look how different he was then. He had the little tiny eyes, big fat cat. Garfield says, hi there, I'm Garfield, I'm a cat, and this is my cartoonist, Jon. Jon says, our only thought is to entertain you. And Garfield says, feed me. Kind of set the tone for the next 36 years. So here's Garfield. Very popular picture opportunity. So Garfield's doing what he does best, sitting and relaxing. You'll see a lot more of that around the studio. So here he is again. This is one of our mottos here. Are we having fun yet? We always try to have a good time, because if we're not having fun, we change things around here. Yeah, Garfield's actually sitting in my director's chair. It's got my name on it there from doing the first Garfield movie, Garfield the movie. This is our atrium. Everything's built around all this atrium where we can gather, play cards, read, have lunch, and everybody gets a window this way. Indiana winters are a little cold, a little dreary, and we run the risk of getting angry and nasty, so we keep sunshine in the building and to keep everything light and funny, because that's what we do for a living. And so we have a good time here. Here's a little Garfield sculpture with a little fountain.
Do these eyeballs look familiar? I have a small repertoire of eyeballs. Jon's sort of the everyday American male. He's easygoing. He's a daydreamer. He's a little wishy-washy. He's basically a nice, good-hearted kind of guy. But he was only put in the strip to be the foil of all of Garfield's gags. His idea of a big evening is watching an Ethel Barrymore film festival. Odie is a delight to work with. He has big ears, a big tongue, and big eyes, and a big heart. The only thing that's tough about doing with Odie is the writing, because he never says anything aside from an occasional arf or a yip or a growl. But his expressions and his body language seem to carry him through the gags. Odie is so rubbery in all of his features, it seems as though he always bounces back from all of the terrible things that Garfield does to him. Even though Garfield and Odie are usually at odds, Garfield requires a lot more attention than the average house cat. When he's not performing in the comic strip, he enjoys the loving care given him by the many talented artists who work with me in our Muncie studios. Jim Clements is our senior designer. Thanks to him, Garfield is always in fashion. Betsy Brackett is one of the world's tallest woman designers. She's a world-class artist, too. My brother Doc manages the studio. As you can see, he doesn't get much respect from the artists. Gary Barker not only assists with the strip, he oversees the Garfield look for the rest of the program. Vicki Scott came to us from the animation industry. She used to work for a green guy with muscles. Now she works for a cat. Kevin Campbell is an experienced illustrator and one of the few good artists with a brush. Larry Fenns is a very versatile artist. His skills range from airbrush to watercolor. Larry's brother, Mike Fenns, gives Garfield a whimsical touch through his illustrations for children's books. Dave Kuhn is one of the best airbrush artists in the Midwest. He also does a mean polka. Dwight Ferris is a production artist and one of the few people who can put words in Garfield's mouth. He also does the lettering. Kenny Getzinger is a paste-up and keyline artist. He puts the finishing touches on Garfield. Some of our artists work long distance with Phil Roman in Hollywood on our animated specials. Doug Frankel supervises our animation efforts. The youngest member of our staff, Bob Scott, would rather animate than eat. Ralph Eggleston is proud of his craft and proud of his heritage. He's from the planet Zordog. In a few years, the comic strip will be celebrating its 100th birthday. In fact, my friend Brad Anderson, who does Marmaduke, has been drawing most of those years. Cartooning is one big fraternity. The cartoonists enjoy getting together to swap a few stories and a few tricks of the trade. Here's a recent conversation I had with three of the industry's most popular cartoonists: Dick Browne, who's with High and Lois and creator of Hagar the Horrible; Mike Peters, Pulitzer Prize-winning editorial cartoonist and creator of Mother Goose and Grimm; and Lynn Johnston, creator of For Better or For Worse.
You know, you've got to enjoy your own stuff. You've got to be your biggest fan.
You've got to be the actor. You've got to be the character, and that's why when you draw a frown, you're frowning, and when you're laughing, you're laughing, and anybody watching you draw thinks you're nuts.
But don't you find that every cartoonist draws themselves? Really?
Oh, sure.
You're drawing yourself all the time. I know you are. I've seen you scratch sometimes. You definitely do. And I know you do.
I'm sorry, Dick. I can't see any similarity between you and Hagar. I once heard Dick lament his school experience. I think you said in an interview once, had I known I was going to be such a success, I would have studied harder in school.
So there was a wonderful old nun, Sister Everesta, made of wax. And she tried so hard with me. And she finally told me one day, she said, young man, young Mr. Richard, she said, if you don't stop doing those silly drawings, you're going to end up in the hot place. And we moved to Florida. It was 98 degrees that day. And I said, you were right, sister. Still doing the crazy cartoon.
I find this picture of this man, a man named Mr. Morgan, who was my English teacher. And I had obviously given him my yearbook after I graduated to sign. Yeah. And on the bottom of of his picture, he said, "Dear Mr. Peters, you had better start growing up real soon. Because remember, you can't always draw cartoons."
Oh, that's wonderful.
Talking to hopeful cartoonists, I asked them about their doodling. Are they a chronic doodler? Do they like to sketch, or do they study the art? If they're chronic doodlers, if it totally occupies their brain, if the clock stops while they're doodling, then they have great hopes of being a cartoonist someday, because the clock has to stop while you're doing your work. Otherwise, you couldn't bear to spend that many hours at a drawing board. That would be too crushing.
You have to go into this dream state of being in this other world.
It's like a meditation.
I go into a new neighborhood, and I'm with these people. I know where the street goes. I know where the bus stop is. I know where the park is. I know what the neighbor's house looks like inside. I know what the wallpaper's like. I mean, you really have to psych yourself into this new dream state, this new community, and then you can think of the relationships.
I usually start with drawing a funny picture of the main character, Hagar, in some position or other like that. And sometimes that'll spark a gag. Sometimes you sort of concentrate on a blank piece of paper and say a mantra like, money, 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 money. Something like that.
Deadlines.
I think of this one guy. I was at this mall in Washington one time, and I saw this little guy. He was about 22 or something. He was sitting there, and he's reading the Washington Post, and he was reading through different cartoons. And I saw him get to my cartoon, and I saw him laugh. And I thought, whoa, because that doesn't happen. I mean, very, very seldom do I ever see it. You know, most of the time they look at my cartoon, you know, and then they go on. This guy laughed, and I think, God, think about that. You do something in Dayton, Ohio, you know, Sarasota or whatever, and you draw it, and then you send it to the syndicate, and that's 1,000 miles away, and then they send it out to the newspapers, and then they print it, and they sell it to the people, and then that person opens it up, pow, and you've like tickled them. I mean, from 12,000
I had a
miles.
great letter one time. It was it's probably the best letter I've ever had. This girl wrote to me and she said, I am in a body brace. I've just made dinner for my family. I have a 2-year-old child. I am standing at my kitchen counter feeling terribly sorry for myself, eating pears out of a can because I cannot eat and I can't sit down and I'm so miserable. I opened up the newspaper and I laughed at your comic, and she said, I wanted to let you know how badly I needed that laugh. I needed that laugh today. Thank you.
I think we're all frustrated actors anyway.
All right.
Except here in the comic strip, we get to write the script, cast the show, set the stage, direct it, everything else. And I often thought we would probably all be stand-up comics if we were only quicker-witted. As it is, we get all day to think of one funny line. Cartoonists' commitment to brightening our lives isn't just confined to the funny pages. Behind the scenes, they donate a lot of time and energy to charitable causes. Lynn, Mike, and I, along with dozens of other cartoonists, recently joined Dick in Florida for his Joan Browne Cartoon Classic to raise money for the critical care unit of the Sarasota Memorial Hospital. See if you can guess who is drawing some of your favorite characters.